Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So still preparing for preseason here. It's a little under a week till official preseason training starts. We did have a preseason friendly last night, which was an opportunity for some of the guys who came to the open tryout to get some minutes in and try and impress the coach a little bit. It was an okay game. We did win. We played against a local college, which is pretty typical for most teams during preseason. It wasn't the best performance from us, a little bit rusty. Some guys are quite unfit. And again, as I said, because we've got trialists in and some guys coming back, the chemistry wasn't all there, but we got a result, so that is a positive and something to build upon. I did put a couple of the clips from the game on my Instagram page. If you want to go and check those out, I'll put the link in the description for you. Also with Instagram, I did actually create a brand new page a few weeks ago. It's 7MLC training. I'll put it in the description as well. So basically that's just going to be another resource for you guys to train with. So if you're at the pitch and you need some drill ideas, you can quickly go over to my 7MLC training Instagram page, and there'll be a bunch of exercises there that you can get quick access to give you some ideas to incorporate in your training that day. But today I'm actually going to get a workout in, and it's going to be mainly injury prevention stuff. If you look at any top level pro clubs and players training in the gym, they're not often doing very heavy stuff. They're not piling on loads of weights and pulling out big squats or anything like that. It's mainly functional work, so a lot of balance and stability work, some single leg stuff, more functional movements that's going to apply during the match, because you don't want to be big and heavy. You're not trying to look like a bodybuilder. That's not a good athletic body for the game of football. It's more of a lean, functional, explosive and agile body. So that's what we want to be developing in the gym as well. So injury prevention is all about strengthening the muscles around the joint, and that basically takes the pressure off the joint a little bit when you're going through your jumping, your sprinting, these twisting and turning changes of direction. It kind of alleviates that stress off the joint and puts it more on the muscles, so your joint is going to stay healthier through the season, and you drastically reduce the chance of getting an injury. Obviously there are some injuries that cannot be avoided. Football is a contact sport, so sometimes you will go into a tackle and come out of it with an injury, but if you do these strengthening exercises regularly, you're going to massively reduce the risk of that injury. And if you do get an injury, the chances are you might reduce the severity of that injury. So in all circumstances, it's very important for footballers to go through some kind of strengthening routine. So we're going to get in the gym first. I'm going to go through my injury prevention training session, trying to get fitter and stronger before the start of preseason starts. So let's get inside and get to work. So to warm up, I spend 5 minutes on the static bike. It's a really good way to warm up, especially before a workout, because it's low impact, so you're not going to get fatigued, but it's just going to activate all those muscle fibers, especially in the lower leg, and get the blood circulating around the body. And then once I've spent 5 minutes on the bike, I move into some activation exercises. So we're moving into the hips and the glutes to begin with the sideways action. If you don't have one of these bands, you can lie on your side and just raise your leg. It still activates those muscle fibers. And then I move into some hip flexor ones as well. So it's really important to activate all these small muscle groups, because if they're not activated, your body's going to overcompensate in some way, and there will be some muscle group taking the load if the other fibers aren't activated yet. So that's a quick way to get injuries and fatigue. So it's really important to activate all your muscle fibers in the lower body, in your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, and your hips as well. And that's going to allow you to perform better and avoid injury. Then I always begin the main portion of my training session with these hamstring curl exercises, but I only perform them once per week because they do break down a lot of muscle tissue. They're very intense on the hamstrings, so you don't want to do these too often, but they are an excellent way to strengthen those hamstrings, and especially in pre-season, your hamstrings are going to be getting a lot of work because they're heavily used in all running activities. So if I did workouts on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday, I'll do them on the Monday, then I won't do them again until the following Monday. Really good exercise for strengthening up those hamstrings. Then I moved into some split squats, which are an excellent way to build the muscles in the hamstring and the quadriceps, important for kicking and running. And I do these single leg because it's important to work on each leg isolated, because you do a lot of isolated movements in a game on each leg. If you think about every action, when you're kicking a ball, when you're sprinting, you're rapidly moving from one leg to the other. You're rarely spending much time on 2 feet at once. So it's important to train each leg individually so the strength between the two legs are almost equal. Then I moved into some Romanian deadlifts, and just like the previous exercise with the split squats, you can do these at home. You don't need this equipment. I'm using the Bosu for some extra stability and balance work, and if you don't have dumbbells, you can do this using just your body weight, although resistance does add an extra challenge that strengthens the body even more. So for the split squats, as we did before, you could just balance your leg on the couch or any chair around the house or anything like that, and for this you can just do them without the Bosu, just standing on the ground. And the balance work itself by going on one leg is going to be a challenge, and it will stimulate those muscle fibers. Then I moved into some calf raises, which is a great way to strengthen up the lower back of the leg and also the Achilles area, which is an injury prone area. With all the explosive movements you're doing when you're pushing off of those toes, you're putting the Achilles under a lot of stress. So if you can strengthen the muscles around it, you're going to take the pressure off those tendons and be at less risk of injury. The calves are also very involved in acceleration and sprinting. Next up is the around the clock lunges, and I'm using this stability pad, as you can see that blue little square on the floor there. If you don't have access to one of these, you can do it with a cushion, or if you don't want to use one at all, you can do it without. But the stability pad or the cushion is a great way just to stimulate more muscle fibers. So as you go through the variations of lunges, you're going out to the front, to the side and the back. You're just activating different muscle groups around the quadriceps and the hamstrings. And the more muscles you can strengthen in those areas, the less impact is going to have on the knee when you're running, sprinting and turning. So this is a great way to protect those knee joints, and the knee joint is probably the most susceptible area to injury in football. You hear of knee injuries all the time, so to prevent this you really want to strengthen as many muscle fibers around the knee as possible. So as you can see with this variation of lunges, we're moving in different directions, which ends up activating different muscle fibers within those leg muscles. Then I moved into some upper body exercises, starting with the Bosu Push Ups, and that just adds a bit of instability, which activates even more muscles in the shoulders, in the triceps, in the core as well. So even though we don't want to be big and bulky on our upper body, it is important to strengthen it up, because that will help you in challenges to avoid being knocked off the ball easily. And it also activates that core, which is so important because that is basically the shock absorber of the body. So when you activate the core, you're basically alleviating the pressure off the other muscle groups. If you have a weak core, your muscles have to overcompensate for that weakness, and that's how you get injuries. Then we moved into these shoulder rolls. So all I'm doing is I'm holding a weighted ball, and then I'm making these rotational movements, going from left to right and then right to left, just activating all those muscles in the shoulder, because in the shoulder you've got the anterior, the posterior, and also the side deltoids as well. So you really want to activate all of those. That's going to help you with your running power, because a lot of the power does come from the shoulders when you're driving it, and it's also going to activate that core too. Then I moved into some pull-ups. Again, really good for upper body strength. It's going to really challenge those biceps and your core at this point, because you're lifting your entire body weight. So I only do 5 of these and 3 reps of them, because again, that is the rep count you want to keep to grow strength without getting bulky and increasing muscle size too much. Then we moved into some plank ball rolls. So now we're actually starting to activate the core, really isolating it, because the core is the shock absorber, as we've already talked about. You really want to strengthen that as much as possible. The stronger your core is, the more efficient your other muscles are going to be able to work. Not only will you see huge improvements in your performance when you're sprinting, changing of direction, but you're also going to be able to endure these movements for longer periods of the game. Then we moved into some push-up to side planks. So we're doing 10, so 5 on each side as far as the side planks, but this is really challenging from the core, because not only are you planking, you're also doing a push-up, and then having to twist during that motion. It really puts that core under stress, and if you do these often, you're going to see huge improvements in your core strength, which will translate into your performance on the pitch. Then I finished with the most challenging core exercise, which is the high plank tuck. So what I'm doing is a high plank, as you can see there, so having to engage that core. Then I'm lifting my knees to my chest, which is really straining those core muscles, all those abdominals. Excellent exercise for strengthening the entire core. If you don't have access to the TRX bands, you can do this variation, which you're seeing on the screen right now. So you just perform a high plank and then you raise one leg at a time, and you still get the same benefits. Then I moved into the next room to get working on some more stability exercises that are going to protect the knee joint, and these are going to be a bit more football specific. As you'll see in a minute, the movements that I'm doing do really apply to the game. So I just wanted to warm up the fast twitch fibers in the lower body, get all those fast twitch fibers nice and activated. So you can see with this fast footwork exercise, I've added a bit of a cognitive element to it. So instead of making the drill symmetrical, I've put the hoops in a sporadic order, so sometimes I'm having to hop on the same foot. Then we went into the two-footed hop, so this is where the stability element begins. So sometimes when you're jumping up for a header, a lot of people land awkwardly, and that's the quickest way to get a terrible knee injury. So this exercise is really going to stabilize the muscles around the knee joint and help you with your landing. If you can stick that landing and be strong through it, you're really going to reduce that risk of injury. Then we move into some single leg, because sometimes you will land on one leg at a time. And also when you're twisting and turning, you are essentially putting all your body weight, really loading it onto one leg at a time, which goes through all the joints. So if you can strengthen the muscles and make them more balanced and stable around, you're just going to reduce the risk of injury. When you're changing direction, twisting, turning, jumping and landing, these are all movements that make the joints very susceptible to injury. Then I finished with some diagonal bounce, so adding more of a lateral movement to it, because in a match you won't always be landing in a linear direction. Sometimes you will be landing on an angle. Alright guys, really good session there. Lots of injury prevention stuff. As you saw, not picking up any heavy weights really whatsoever. Really just working on functional movements, isolating one leg at a time, because in a match you're really just always on one leg at a time. So you need to build that balance and stability. So all these exercises are going to really help with that. All of them integrating some kind of core stability as well. So your core is what absorbs all the impact. I like to think of it as more of a shock absorber. So when you're running, jumping, twisting, changing of direction over 90 minutes, it takes its toll on the body. But if you have a nice strong core, it kind of absorbs some of that impact. So you not only can perform the movements better, but you can perform for longer as well. So make sure you're integrating some core stability stuff into your workouts. This stuff's just going to help you perform a lot better during a match and help you reduce the risk of injury, which is extremely important. But let me know if you have any questions. I usually do these kinds of workouts about 3 times a week during pre-season or in the off season, and then during season I do them about twice a week with about 2 days of rest in between. So I usually do it on a Monday and a Thursday if I've got a Saturday match. You don't want to be doing it too much, because some of these exercises do break down the muscle fibers, and you don't want to be getting too fatigued throughout the season, because you've got a lot of training with your team and you're doing other exercise as well. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button for weekly training videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video.